Hola, bienvenidos a Popurrí en Blanco. Yo soy su host, Daniela Blanco, y esto es un podcast sobre todo y nada. Un popurrí, una hoja en blanco. Hello, hello, welcome to the first edition of Popurrí en Blanco in English. Our guest of the day is Maria Antonia Melo, my cousin. She's a dancer. Dance has been a part of her life ever since I've known her. All different things. You started with ballet, right?
Yeah, I started when I was, or honestly, I think my mom put me into some weird gymnastics / dance classes when I was like a baby. Like I have a picture of me just hanging somewhere. Then I started with ballet, and it has slowly but surely moved towards a more urban dance style. So I started with ballet, then went more into the jazz and modern dances, and then since I was 12, I've been focusing on hip hop and commercial, and I'm currently also studying to be a dance teacher or hip hop coach for little children, specializing on hip hop and the history and the basic steps and everything.
Awesome. And what brings us here together, besides the fact that we're cousins, is our love for music and our curiosity. Yes. And we are here today to talk about music, more specifically, what is music? That is the question that we're gonna talk about today. And without further ado, let's get into it. And if I were to ask you, like, just give me like a rough definition of music, like, what would you say? What is music?
For me, music is like a constellation of rhythms or a pattern of sounds which creates like an artistic auditory context.
Okay. Yes, it's just like your definition. Like, if I were to just like, of course we're gonna get into it more as we go through it, but like I like to begin with just like the question. If I were to answer that same question, because like I don't want to make it just so you have to do it, I would say that music is an auditory experience that we choose to live through. So like as humans with free will.
Yeah.
Not that free will is the only thing that makes music. I feel like we could be induced to like listening to music. Like, even if I don't want to listen to music, like I just want to say, like, if the neighbor is listening to music, like it's not only free will. Like my neighbor may be blasting his stupid ass songs and I have to listen to them. So it's not only free will. But I do feel like there's like, we could get into it later, but there's like there's an aspect of like wanting to listen to music that makes music.
Yeah.
Right.
I think like it's very complicated, especially if you talk about the boundaries, what is music, what is sound, then it's like so difficult to say, okay, music is this because we do it with the intention of it being music and not it being just noise or sounds. But then exactly like the example that you gave, what if my neighbor is listening to music and I hear it? Like, that's why I say that music is more of a pattern that we know or that we think is like an auditory experience, which makes us like feel something or be happy about hearing music, because music is something very emotional and like happy for me.
Or sad.
Yeah, true.
But like intrinsically, as you said, emotional. Like it is a very, very connected to the emotions. And I feel like that's why music, as far as we know, seems to be specifically like a human behavior, like a thing that Homo sapiens engage in, right? There are other animals that can there has been cases of animals engaging in different types of music or musicality or aspects that we relate to music. But like the animal, so to speak, that can engage in all of those aspects together, like at the same time, seem to only be Homo sapiens, as far as we're concerned. Of course, as I keep saying, we have never talked to dogs. Like, we don't know, right? Like, they're just there barking, and they may have the cure to cancer, and we will never know.
Yeah. I mean,
'Cause, like,
animals use music to communicate. Like some animals, for example, birds or like whales. I feel like that is music in our ears. Just like that's their language. Because I always
okay.
find it so interesting when whales talk to each other, like the sounds of it just sound to like music. Like it's an instrument almost, that the whale is an instrument itself talking to other whales and creating music while talking. So it's a language for them, but for us or for me, it sounds like music.
Okay, that's a very interesting thing you're saying, and I feel like I would want to get into that. And it is that okay? You just said that for some cases, like in some cases of some animals, right? Their way of communicating is music, right? Like, or we experience it as music, like we
Yeah.
as humans. But then, would you say that speech in itself is music?
No. Yes. I don't know. Maybe both. Because obviously, like, music has a pattern, and I feel like speech also has a pattern. Or I was thinking of this example, like rap. Rap was created from poetry and like poems and everything. Like, and poetry has a meter, a rhythm, and everything. That's why it's so easy to create music and to actually create rap and like hip hop music in general, because it just has this natural pattern to it, because it is poetry, and poetry has just this continuous meter and metrum that you use to actually talk, and that's why it's so easy to put it on top of music. And that's why I think speech itself has a pattern, but music is more of this repeating and continuous pattern that makes it then more enjoyable for us to listen to.
Okay. Okay. Just to like quote a person, like I saw a video, I think you saw it as well. It's by 12 Tone, just like giving credit where it's due. I'm not that smart. Um, but he does say that while speech is like okay, so while trying to like figure out the definition of music, which is something like again, as I just said, we're probably not going to find the answer to, and it's a question that has been asked by far smarter people than me. And so a few people throughout, I don't want to say history, but like yeah, history have like tried to like define what music is. There's a guy named Edgard Varese. I don't actually know how to say his name. But he defined music as organized sound, right?
Yes.
So as you were saying, patterns and everything. But then this guy from 12 Tone then goes on to say, but like, wait, isn't speech organized sound? Sure, it is. Like, in fact, it is quite organized. And then he goes on to say that maybe, like, in his definition, maybe speech is too organized to be qualified as music, right? Because we have like it's huge. Like speech is just like this huge thing where it's like it's so many things that combine, but there's also like an element of repetition that is not there.
Yeah.
And repetition happens to be very, very, very important to music. Like it's like a core element in music.
And maybe I would also add not only the repetitions, but music is also about layers. Like there's so many different layers, especially like in pop music nowadays. There's so many layers in music itself, or in a piece that's created. It's normally it can be just a piano playing a melody or a rhythm, but it now it has evolved to actually music being layers of patterns of repetitions that creates like pieces and such great music that we listen to nowadays.
Yeah, that's not to say that a cover with a guy singing and just a piano is not music, right?
Yes,
So it's like
obviously.
the fact that it's layered. But it's interesting when you say layers, because like when you said layers, you were talking about different instruments, right? But the first thing that I thought about when you said layers or like different aspects was like the fact that music is comprised of different things, not necessarily layered as in different instruments, but like in a piano, there's like you have pitch, you have rhythm, you have beat. Like there's all these different things inside just like the music like itself. Which is like very interesting. I was watching this yeah, this video where it's like music is just air. Like before we hear it, music is air. So just in I don't want to say like, but in the micro level, music is sound waves. Sound waves are waves in the sound, and like in the waves of sound in the air. sound waves get processed by our brain. Like, just to get into, like, we're not going to get into the brain because that's absolutely freaking huge, but just like, it's like, to me, this is absolutely wild. How do we hear sound and music and like everything? It's like this sound wave, whatever the hell that is, goes inside my ear. And then there's the eardrum. The eardrum is like this very, very thin and small membrane that like moves like a drum, literally, like the membrane of a drum. It'll move depending on these sound waves. And in turn, this will move bones that are inside our ear canal, which will in turn move other things that will go into our little cochlea or something. It's like this snail thing, this like snail looking thing that has tiny, tiny, tiny little hairs. And like sound will move through that, or like, I want to say wind, but like it's ridiculous to think about wind moving inside our ears, right? Because it's not like, but yeah, let's imagine that it is. Wind will move through our ears, and these like little feathery hairs will get ruffled, and then they will turn this mechanical energy into electrical energy, which will then in time, be processed by the brain as electrical energy. That's basically what sound is for the body, right? Side note, a super random thing, but like those little bones in the ear are the smallest bones in the human body.
Yeah.
It's just like, I find it like a very cool fun fact. We have bones in our ear, and they're very, 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 very tiny. But anyway, music, as I was saying, going back to music, it's just air carrying sound waves that get processed in our brain.
Yeah.
And then there's beat, right? The music has beat, or it follows beat. Or let's talk about music in the conventional sense. We can talk about like non-conventional music later on, right? But like music in the conventional sense of music has a beat. And we are some of the only, not the only, but some of the only animals that can understand beat, which is very interesting. Because like beat in itself has to do with our ability to predict patterns, not react to them, which is what is so interesting. If there is no pattern, our brains can't really do it. What we're doing is predicting a pattern, predicting a sound. We're not merely reacting to it. We're not merely like processing it as it gets to us. If it were to be like that, cats would be way more efficient at making music or understanding patterns than we are, because their reaction time is much, 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 much smaller than ours is. Like we're very slow.
Yeah. But that's like the thinking of like, we already know what's coming is very accurate to dancing, because like as a dancer, I see it a lot that, or in class, we're always told the music tells you what to do. Like the music gives you a beat and you move to that beat, or the music makes a sound here, so that's why your body moves there. That's what we learn in class, or what I learned as a dancer, that if the music gives you something, you react to it with your body. But then at the same time, there's like freestyle dancers in hip hop, or like b-boys and all of that, that actually just know a song, or even if they don't know the song, they hear like the underlying beats or the melody that is played, and they try to emphasize it in their body, like show what is about to come without actually knowing the song. So freestylers have this, okay, I think it's about to be a beat, so I'm gonna hit it with my arm, something like that. But then in class we get, or if you create a choreography for a dance, you listen to the music and listen to what is given, and you try to emphasize it or show it with your body.
Mm-hmm.
So it's very different how you actually process music with your body, like in dancing.
And that opens the door to talk about something that I think is actually fascinating. And it is that music, just in and on itself, is very related to movement in our bodies. Like what I meant to say earlier was also that when you look at scans of people when they're performing music or listening to music, the entire brain lights up, which is wild and is really interesting, because not every activity that we do makes the entire brain light up, which just goes to show that music isn't, as I have just proven my initial point wrong. Music isn't necessarily only an auditory experience. And in the brain itself, like the brain itself knows that. The brain itself processes music from all different standpoints. Like music can be interpreted visually. Music, you can read music. And music can be interpreted visually. It can also be interpreted physically. And also, which is like what is really interesting, we were talking about speech and music before, is that speech and music are like the parts of the brain that like process speech and music are different. And so I saw this, like, music therapy is very popular. It is very popular for all different kinds of things. But like, for example, it is very popular as a speech therapy, which I find fascinating. There's cases of people who go through, a stroke, and then their ability to, like, their speech ability is impaired. They can't speak anymore. And I'm not entirely sure how it works inside their brains, as in, is it that they're not able to say the words, but they know the concept, meaning they see a phone and they know it's a phone, but they cannot say that it's a phone? Or they just can't recognize the phone? Like, can the idea not completely form in their head? I'm guessing there's also different levels. Maybe some people can't just say the word, and some people, like, literally cannot understand the entire concept. But these people who cannot bring themselves to say words will oftentimes be able to sing songs.
Yeah.
With words, right? Like, they will not be able to say, "You are my sunshine," but they can sing, "You are my sunshine, my only sunshine," which is wild. Like, they can say the words. Their mouth and their whole body has the ability to say this. And even though their brain has something that doesn't allow them to say the words, they can still do it through music. And it just blows my mind.
Yeah. I mean, it's crazy. Like, in general, I think you've also heard of it, the Mozart effect, and everything, that there's like this hypothesis that music actually improves your brain power, or that your brain gets bigger if you listen to Mozart. Or do you know, oh, I always see it in like American TV shows where they put like headphones on their belly when they're pregnant and put like Mozart or Beethoven so the kids become smarter once they grow up. And this, again, in the connection with what you said, that our entire brain is like actually working and being activated when we listen to music, and that's why there's like this Mozart effect, that's why our brain improves. And I feel like, in general, as a musician, or also as a like someone who creates music, it's, you use so many different aspects of your brain and your body to create music, because of course you have to listen to it, but you also have to like read notes or write notes. You have to feel, if you play an instrument, for example, you have to feel it.
It has been proven, not that, if you play Mozart to like babies, they will grow up to be smarter people. This is actually not the case.
It is not.
But that music does help in like a million different things. Like, of course, like, it's not Mozart. Like, it also works with all different kinds of music, and it's just about how it activates your brain in different ways. So like, just thinking about it, if music activates so many different parts of your brain, like, for example, that makes you a better problem solver, right? And I don't mean like that it'll make you in the long term a problem solver, but it does make so that your brain, like, when you're listening to music, your brain gets activated in so many different ways that in the moment, or in the, like, in the following few minutes, you do have more like brain activity. So you are more primed to do, brain work. That sounds ridiculous, but like, let's call it brain work. So it won't like make you, like, in this like specific people in this specific like experiment that people always quote to talk about like the Mozart effect. Mostly what he was saying is not that like, yeah, it can make you like smarter in the long term, but like people are better at performing like mental tasks after having listened to music. Because it helps, like, it lights up your brain, and it totally makes sense.
I hear a lot of people listen to like punk or rock or metal music when they try to work out, because it's like aggressive and then gives you more strength. So I honestly think maybe music isn't a superpower, but it's more of an or it creates a superpower within ourselves. It just emphasizes what we already have inside of us and just gives us this impulse or this strength to actually fulfill it. And I think that agrees for my life, or that happens to me a lot. Or in general, music is very emotional to me, and I always know how I'm feeling by the choices of songs that I listen to. Because
Okay.
sometimes I just don't know how I'm feeling. I'm just like, fine, I'm living right now, I'm good, I'm breathing. And then I like choose a sad song to listen to, and I'm like, oh damn, I'm sad. Why am I sad? And then I like start thinking about my emotions, because I know that I connect all of my emotions with music, and especially like if I feel happy, I want to listen to happy songs. I'm like, or if I want to create a great atmosphere. For example, I was in a competition yesterday with my friends, and we were a little like disorganized because our coach wasn't there and everything. So I tried to like lighten up the mood and everything with music. So you can change the emotion of a whole group just with music. And I remember it was such a great atmosphere. At the end of the competition, they like joined all of the dance groups together, and the DJ played some banger hits. Like everyone knows these hits. It was like a party of its own, and the atmosphere was so beautiful. Like if you go to a club and everyone is actually enjoying the music, everyone is having fun, it's such a great atmosphere. And that atmosphere is only created due to the music, because music like unites people. Music is like a social connection or concept that creates so many connections and relationships between people, which are also connected to emotions that people feel to each other or towards each other and with another. So I think music is like such a great, um, more of a help, or music is a help to create a strength within ourselves that can also create relationships and everything. So it is a superpower, but more, it is an emphasizer of the superpower we have inside of us.
That makes a lot of sense. That is beautiful. And another thing that I meant to touch on that I just think you literally just touch on is the social aspect of music. And it is that okay, music has been a part of Homo sapiens for as far as we know. So the oldest musical instruments that we have found, like I want to say like artificial musical instruments that we have found, are flutes found in Germany, dating like 40,000 years ago. It's little flutes. But to be fair, the oldest musical instrument that we do know of is the body, the human body, our ability to clap, our ability to stomp on the floor, our voice, right? So it's like the same thing like you were saying before, whereas like whales sing and birds sing, and that's like just like the way they communicate with each other. Like our voices, but like our voices aren't singing, but like the one of the oldest instruments is our voice, right? Like well, singers
Definitely.
sing and like their instrument is their voice. And some of the oldest or like the oldest instrument that we have is our body. But like when you go around the world and we may think of like music, it's very interesting. We think of music as like this developed phenomenon, where it really
Hmm.
isn't. Like and it music evolved more as like a social thing and like a way to like gather around. And if you look at different like cultures around the world, and it's very interesting, like you will look at all cultures and like there hasn't like we haven't found a single human culture that does not have some sort of music and that does not do music, and in the most traditional sense. It's always tribal in the sense like it's a way to come together, it's a way to dance together around the fire.
Yeah.
Our ability to connect with each other, music I feel like evolved in a sense of like everything we do serves an evolutionary purpose, or else it would have been phased out. The ability to
True.
dance to tunes does not serve an evolutionary purpose for seals or whales, right? So, like, they don't do what we do. And it seems that we haven't been able to find a specific purpose for music in itself, in and on itself, like music, but we do know what music does. And it is exactly what you said. It brings us together. And it has been shown that the reason us humans are so powerful, and I put that in like quotation marks, because like, what is power, right? But like, what has brought us so far as a society, as a like a species, is our ability to cooperate and to build together and to build communities. And so, if music is this magical thing that helps us build communities, that's it. Like, music is the ultimate superpower. Then, again, as you said, music does nothing. If we just like take a speaker and we bring it somewhere where nobody can hear it and we just blast music, right? So, like, it's not music in itself that is the power, but it's what music does to us that is that power. But music is still, even though it's like, it's very interesting, like music is like this phenomenon that is like both very communal but also very individual, and like that's also beautiful, but also it brings us together in a way that, like, I don't know, it's really interesting. But like, you can come you can become closer to a person by their music. And like, this is of course trivial as hell what I'm about to say, but like, when you go to like Taylor Swift concert, everyone there loves Taylor Swift, so like they have something in common, right? They're all Swifties. And they're all super excited to like scream the same songs together. But there's also like something so beautiful and like, so I don't want to say private, but like, you know when you're like, you listen to like this like obscure music, like, not that it's dark or anything, but it's like super random, and like suddenly you find someone that like knows this band that you know and love, like nobody else knows, and it's like such a bonding experience. Not only how you bond in music, like around a circle dancing, but like about music, like you will find bonding experiences with someone, not listening to music or making it together, but just about the music that you both like. Or you all like, maybe it's more than two people.
Yeah, that I agree with what you said beforehand, that music can be something very individual but also very communal. I would say that music itself can be liked by a lot of people, but we all understand music in a different way, or it connects to our personal experiences in different ways. Because some music, for example, my mom loves the song because it reminds her of my grandmother who died when I was born. So I can't connect to that song on the way she does. I still enjoy listening to the song and I think it's a very beautiful song, but I can't connect or have or achieve the same feelings, or like actually experience the same feelings that she does while listening to the song. So I feel like music is a very um, emotional but on an individual level experience, because we feel music in different ways. Sometimes we feel it more intense than others, and sometimes we have completely different emotions about a song, because some people like love this song and some people hate this song. And but there's always like this community of, oh, we actually, all of us like this song, but we have a different feeling towards it. So I feel like there's also this contrast between individual and as a community listening to music.
It is. And I feel like what you just said is, I'm going to save that for another moment, like what I wanted to say, because like I'll say it anyway. But I feel like emotion is a very particular relationship that we as Homo sapiens, that we Homo sapiens have with music. Like, emotion is a very, very important part of music. It's like how it makes us feel, right? We have the ability not only like to create memories around music, like we have this ability to, you listen to a song that you used to listen when you were 15 and suddenly you are transported. Like, it happens to me all the time. Like, suddenly I'll be transported to like walking around Berlin, right? When I was 15 years old, like just turned 15, and like I'm re-listening to the songs that I used to listen to during my student exchange that were there when I was 15, and like it's like literally walking through Berlin again. I can like close my eyes and I'm there, right? So like we have all these like direct relationship, or like as you were saying, with your mom and her relationship with the song in connection with our grandma. So like it has all these like different abilities. But like, for example, I was watching a video that I found super, super interesting, and it's also about chills, right? Like, you know how people get chills when we hear something, like it's like very much like a musical experience. And I was like
Yeah.
seeing this video, and it's interesting about a guy, like a PhD student, or like a PhD candidate student that is doing some research. And he explains that what happens with chills is a very particular thing that happens. Like, for example, most people will experience chills, you know, when a singer will be belting a note that is super high, and you're like, wow, that is wild, and you'll get chills. And he was explaining that this is a physiological response of the body that is very particular. So, like, I love going back to like the evolution of everything, right? And so, from an evolutionary standpoint, we evolved to be able to hear screams and react to them, right? Because like we need to be able to react to, like, there's a scream, we need to know whether we have to help or whether we have to run or like whether we have to hide. Like, we need to know and respond to these screams. So like when you hear a very high note, it is very akin to a scream, to like a person screaming. It sounds very similar to like a scream, right? But what happens is, as soon as you hear that like scream, so to speak, that high note, your body will activate its fight or flight response. You know, your hairs will like come on it, and you'll be ready, you'll be primed for like adrenaline. And but then, just as that happens, our prefrontal cortex, the front part of the brain that is like responsible for, you know, logical thinking, will make us understand that we're not in danger, right? It's not a dangerous situation. Nobody's screaming. This is just a song. So it comes from this like sort of like disconnect.
That reminds me of this quote from a video that said, "Music is violence without the danger," because you just talked about the danger of it, like, is not there. Music is violence, but without the danger.
And our body literally reacts to it like it is. And so the fight or flight response will be activated, and our brain will be like, no, it's all good, you're all good. And that's where this enjoyment, that's where we get this enjoyment. It's like, it sounds crazy, but that's literally why people do, like, you know, extreme sports. We love that feeling of adrenaline, we love that rush.
Yeah.
And literally what's happened physiologically is that our body is experiencing that rush, but our brain is telling itself that we're not in danger, which is why it's so enjoyable when you get chills from a song. And I was like, that is wild. I love physiology.
Me too. I love it. I think chills is something I've seen or I felt in my life so many times, especially again from my dancer perspective. If sometimes I would just listen to a song or I know this song and I wouldn't get chills from it. But then a dancer creates a dance or like a movement that emphasizes their emotion or their experience of the song and shows it in this dance. Oh my goodness. I remember there was I took one class and we had a song that I knew, but I didn't really connect anything to it. It was Carry Me by Tacy. And I've never connected to the song in any kind of way. But then just watching him perform his choreography that I just learned as well, but him performing it brought chills all over my body. I was crying like a baby after his performance because it was so amazing how he was able to actually explain how he feels about this music with dance and to create chills about this music with his movement and his story behind it and the journey that he showed while going through this song. That was so amazing to me. I had so many goosebumps. I was crying on the floor. I literally cried into the shoulder of one of my friends because I was done afterwards. I couldn't continue the classes afterwards because I was so done with it.
Yes, that happens. And I feel like it's awesome, and it's like wild how we experience music in like all these different ways. But it just goes on to show the power of music. But then again, I want to go back. I want to circle back to like, what is music, right? And at some point we were talking about organized sound. And then this guy, this is based on a video by 12 Tone, as I said, he then goes on to say, well, like, you know, someone hammering a nail is organized sound. You know, a heartbeat is organized sound. Yet it is not really music, now is it? And so he then
Going
he's
back
like,
to the heartbeat, I mean,
well, you can
Ariana
expand.
Grande just dropped her new album with a heartbeat. I mean, that was that was spicy. I like that. Mwah. Besitos.
But like, is it music just because of this heartbeat, or is it how she took the heartbeat and turned it into music, right? Like,
I think, or how she took it.
it has, I guess, like, it has more to do with it, but it's like very interesting. And then she goes on to say that, okay, music is organized sound, but organized by a smart being, right? I don't want to say human, because let's say that there are, I don't know, aliens that can organize sound and make music. I don't know. But then again, speech, as we were saying earlier, is also organized sound, organized by us humans, smart beings. But it isn't music, right? And then what is really interesting is, I'm sure you've heard this. I know I was exposed to it at school, and it opens like all these different hosts of like debates. And it is John Cage's 433 piece. John Cage's 433 piece, I don't know if you know it.
I know it, and I do not like it. I do not think it is music.
Okay. Some people would argue that it is. I'm not going to say that I am those people, but I'm going to argue as if I were, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, what is music? It goes back to like, what is music? And it's like, but I feel like, okay, so like, well, 433, we'll go back to 433, because like I feel like that's the complete extreme of music, right? There's all hosts, like all sets of experimental music that happens in between, you know, Amy Winehouse and 433. So like, there's this piece of music called Treatise by Cornelius Cardew. It is pages upon pages upon pages of graphic, if you want to call it, like graphic music. What he does is he doesn't write notes. And I remember doing this at school in music class. I remember this being like a whole semester that we like explored this. He doesn't write notes. What he does is draw shapes and lines and like how he thinks music or the sounds should be. But it's open to the interpreter whether a big sound, what is a big drawing supposed to mean? Is it a loud sound, or is it a rich sound, or is it a growing sound, right? So like, it's so many different ways to like approach it. And so then we're faced with the idea, okay, so like the performance of these types of like graphic music is music, because they're like performing, but it's like, is the sheet music, right? And people are like, no, the sheet music is not music. But then if you think about Beethoven's Fifth Symphony, the sheet of music is music, right? Like, it's not just the performance. Of course, you will hear the performance, and depending on different things, it'll sound a little bit different or a little bit like, but Beethoven's Fifth is Beethoven's Fifth, as, you know, 12 Tone said it. And it's not going to change. So, like, the piece on itself is the music. So, like, the sheet is music. Even if it's not performed, we know that Beethoven's Fifth Symphony is music, right? So going back to 433, many people would argue that 433 is not music, it's performance, right? Performance art. So it's very interesting to say, but like, it's art is in the eye of the beholder. Like, you decide whether what you're seeing is art or not. And then it's really interesting. But while 433, you say 433 is not music, and it is performance. You didn't say that, he said that, but you say it's not music. But the only case in which 433 works is if it is regarded as music. Like, this performance only works if you think that what you're seeing is music, right? Because if you're just, let's imagine you're just playing 433 on a speaker and nobody knows. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you're just not hearing anything, and that's that. For those that don't know, 433 is, I don't know how many bars, but it is a piece that lasts 4 minutes and 33 seconds of complete silence. So you will have a performer walk on stage, open the piano, and perform 1 minute and 33 seconds of silence, close the piano, and walk away. Not a note was played. The sheet music exists, and it is just silence. Literally, like silence. Silences. So, the concept of 433 only works if you regard it as music. It is only effective if what you think you're seeing is music.
The problem with that, what I think is why I think it's not music, is we've talked about our definitions of music, or in general, like also Edgar Varese, I don't
Uh-huh.
know how he's pronounced, but his definition is music is organized sounds. We said it's an auditory like experience. It's something we hear, or you even explained kind of the physics or the biology of how we listen to music. Focus on listening. For me, music has something to do with sound waves that we talked about, with sounds. You need sounds to actually create music. And just silence is not a sound. Silence is no sound.
Isn't it?
So so it's not really music to me. No, I don't think silence is a sound, because sound is created by waves, as you said. Like, if we go back like on the biology and physics of it, sounds are waves in the air. And obviously there is air in silence, but there's no waves.
Yeah, but then again,
Like, silence is just still air.
but silence is also so important for music, right? Like, it's not like music is not the same if it doesn't have the silences where the silences are to accentuate. Like, it's really interesting, but like music doesn't exist with the like without the existence of silence. Because like if there's no silence for the music, there's no music to begin with. Like, imagine a world where there's like noise all the time. Music doesn't carry, like, I'm just like, you know, blowing everything out of proportion right now, and I'm aware. But silence is a very important part of music. Like, there's a reason there are signs in music and codified music that signify a silence, a break in the music.
But I mean, silence in this case is like used to emphasize music. It's not the music itself, it's more of a method used to emphasize da 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 da. Like, it's to emphasize the music that comes afterwards or beforehand. It's not something you just, it's not music itself, it's just something that you use to emphasize the music, or in my opinion that is. So that's why I don't think that 434 or 33 is actually music itself. It can be a performing art. That I wouldn't, or that's a different question. Yes, it can be a performing art, but I don't think that it's music, because music to me, at some type, at some kind of level, it's sound. And that's where like this discussion is: what is sound, what is noise, and what is music. But music needs sound, so just silence isn't music for me. You can use silence as an emphasis for music, but not silence itself is music.
Okay, I can get behind that. But what if you're a person that is deaf and can't hear music, and then you go to 433 to watch a performance of 433. But you're so far away, you can't tell that he's not playing anything. And then your brain is like, oh, that is so beautiful. That in itself is a musical experience, wouldn't you say? Like, I decided to go and live through this performance, and my brain is doing whatever it is that my brain is doing. You may even say that the music of 433 is not in the notes that the pianist is playing, but in the laughs and the comments that the audience is making during these silences. And in the eye of the beholder, that could be music, just as much as it could not be.
Yeah, but then these reactions from the audience is sound. So we're going back to my. Okay, I have created a new definition for music. It is some type of sound. Okay, it needs sounds.
Okay.
It needs waves, and I like this little motion for waves. But anyway, what I'm talking about is obviously I think there's also like this complicated aspect of like what is noise and what is sound and what is music, because for example, what is actually like on a definition type, I don't know how to describe it, but in my music at school in my music class I actually learned about soundscapes, which is a type of music technically if we're even taught soundscapes in a music class at school. Nor I would say it is a type of music. Personally, for me, it isn't, because for me, it's more of noise. Obviously, noise can be artistic. Like if you just or if you sit down on the street and just listen to the cars driving by, the people talking behind you, the birds singing their own little songs in the sky. Obviously, this can be artistic, and that this can be a form of, or that can be performing arts. But somehow it doesn't qualify as music to me. I don't know how to describe why not, but it doesn't. And that's why I think it's so difficult to actually find a real definition for music. But what I have concluded today is that music definitely needs sounds.
Okay. I just want to say like a little thing there, and it's really interesting. They did an experiment on people where they would ask them, to hear a sound and rank it from one being just like a random sound of nature, and 5 being music. And they played the sound for the person. The sound was the sound of a few drops falling on water. So like bloop, bloop, bloop. And initially the people heard it and they were like, this is a 1.5, right? Like it's not music. It's like drops falling. Like who the hell cares? Like this is sound. And as this sound looped and started like going again and again, their perception of it started shifting more towards music because of this loop, right? Because like as we were saying, like repetition is very important for music. So like repetition in itself almost creates music. In fact, music that does not have repetition is more likely to be regarded as less good or more likely to have been done randomly by AI than music with repetition. But all this to say that again, it has much to do with our perception, right? And as you were saying, random sounds around in the street are not music. If you are in the street listening to the birds and the sounds and you are wanting to have a musical experience, you may very well have one. And so I would say that music is anything that we listen to and decide to or happen to have a musical experience. That is by nature very I want to say individualistic, very personal, right? Because like what I listen to and decide to have a musical experience about is different to what you may. So I may go listen to John Cage's 433 and then be like, this is music. This is what I've been looking for my entire life. I just realized the meaning of life with this song, right? Or
Okay.
performance or whatever. But I may not. So, um, I do think that the idea of sound is important, but I don't think it's the most important. I feel like it's fine if you think that the most important part of music is that it is sound. That's okay. I feel like it not necessarily, because I feel like maybe you can experience music without sound. Maybe you can experience music visually. I have no idea. I haven't. But okay, let's say that it's sound that you decide to experience as music. If we were to come to a consensus between you and I in this podcast as a way to like say music is this, as a um, contraposition, like as a way to like compare it to the beginning, I think we can come to the consensus that we both would say that music is an auditory experience. Not necessarily an auditory experience, because you can experience it through vibrations and not hearing it, but it does require vibrations, therefore sound, right?
Hmm.
So it's an experience involving sound that we experience as musical in some way, as musically, as musical, as music. So it has to do with the fact that there is sound or vibrations, yeah, the sound waves, and the wish to experience it as music, right? And it's very interesting. But like, if you, of course, I can't deny that reggaeton is music, unfortunately, but I wish I could. I don't enjoy it. Right? And like in a very basic sense, I do say that reggaeton is not music. Cuz I'm like, no, it's sound. To me, it's sound.
Hmm.
But why is that? Because I don't, or like I refuse to experience it as music. It is not that it isn't music. It is not that a lot of people, many people in the world choose to experience it as music. It's just that I choose not to. Therefore, to me, it is not music.
Yeah, I think that's a great definition actually. Like saying it is an experience with sounds or concerning sounds which we wish to or just happen to experience as music because we already talked about like what if our neighbor on the other side is listening to music, we just know that it's music because of the pattern. But I agree that sometimes we try to take away or that we can put emphasis on something that or we think that something is music even though to others it's not. I agree with that because to some people soundscape is music, to me it isn't. So I do agree that if we wish to believe that this is music, it can be for some people music. So I think also on that level, music is a very individual definition. Like for everyone, music is different. Like everyone likes different music, everyone has a different taste, and everyone has a different definition for it and feels music in a different way. So I think the definition is also based on the individual.
Yeah, and not, that's not to say that music isn't it like individual experience. Um, but just like if we're just looking for a definition, a basic definition of what is, we're not asking what it's for. Like we've talked about what it's for and what purpose it serves and what it can do for us. And there's all different questions. Those are all different aspects of music, but they're not what it is, right? So like just I just want to say this as even if the definition of it sounds very simplistic and individualistic in its like core, that doesn't mean that music is supposed to be an individual experience. In fact, I think it is quite on the contrary, supposed to be a communal experience. And maybe that communal experience is where my definition of music and your definition of music come together and we realize, like music is like that place where like the definitions of other people's and ours just like come together. So like if you think this is music and I think this is music and we're dancing to it together, like it's great. So like that's music. That's what music is to us, and that's that. So even though the definition is individual, the experience of music can and probably should, for the most part, happen in a communal sense, in a way of like coming together with others. But anyway, thank you for coming on and talking to us about your experience with music. It's been wonderful. On awesome insights on your life as a dancer.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you all for listening to this first version of Popurrí en Blanco in English. There's more of these to come. I don't want this to be exclusive to Spanish. There's some people in my life who are very important, like Maria Antonia, who feel more comfortable doing it in English or who can't speak Spanish. So for all y'all who prefer my Spanish episodes, there's a whole lot of them you can listen to. But if you're listening this, I'm guessing you listened to the entire podcast. So like, I guess this is completely useless. Just know that there's more Spanish episodes coming, just like there's more English episodes coming. And that's it. Have an awesome rest of whatever it is that you're doing today. And stay curious.
Gracias por embarcarse con nosotros en este episodio de Popurrí en Blanco. Recuerden dejarle estrellitas al podcast si les gustó, compartir el episodio y si quieren hacer parte, dejar comentarios o hacer preguntas para los próximos episodios, seguirnos en nuestras redes sociales @popurrienblancopod. Nos vemos la próxima semana y hasta entonces manténganse curiosos.